Welcome to the DWRD Net Stationery Feed with your host, Derek DeWeese. This is a podcast where we talk about all things stationery, be it fountain pens, pencils, typewriters, papers, and more. So sit back and relax and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome back. This is episode 4 of season 2 of the DWRD Net Stationery Feed, and today's guest is Coralie of CoraCreaCrafts / the Creative Corner Nashville store. Welcome, Coralie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Now, this is exciting because this is now the third of the 3 stationery stores in the greater Nashville area that we are lucky enough to have, with Coralie opening up about a year ago, I think, but we'll get into that later on. But to start out, let's go through the kind of standard questions that I ask everybody. So what got you into the hobby to begin with?
Was always very fascinated by medieval times, and probably around 7 years ago, I started just learning Gothic calligraphy on my own. So I bought one of these dip pens, and I just kind of started learning like that. And that's really what got me started into my entire stationery and crafting journey, because that's the very first creative thing that I've gotten into.
Oh, that's interesting. Because it's in such a short amount of time. If that was 7 years ago to where you're at now, that's quite a ramp up of speed, but that's a great thing. When you find something you like, it's easy
Yeah.
to jump in full steam ahead. So let's talk about now. What have you been writing with? What pens do you have inked? Are they fountain pens? Are they ballpoints, roller balls? What have you been using to write lately?
My very last pen is this Marquise fountain pen from Ferris Wheel Press, and it writes so smoothly. I really love it. It's also such a nice grip in my hand, and it's just very pretty. So that's my new go-to. But I switch from time to time. I have a few other fountain pens. I don't necessarily go with big brands. Like Ferris Wheel, that's actually my first big brand pen. I usually go with like small artists. For example, my husband got me a few fountain pens on Etsy from people who make them themselves. Um, so yeah, I've always been into fountain pens, but not necessarily the ones you may know. So this is probably the only one you would know about.
No, and that makes sense. There's so many pen makers now. I mean, in
Yeah.
season 1, I interviewed a bunch, and that led me to start making type things. So you never know who's making pens. It's just something that working with the hands and doing a craft or a hobby. So it's
It's such a
we're lucky
beautiful
in the
art, and I think it's also nice to support these very small artists that make something very unique. So I really enjoy buying pens that are, a one-time kind of pen that will never be that nobody else will be able to get.
no, definitely.
Yeah.
So what about ink? Do you like to use cartridges or bottles? Do you stick with the same inks, or do you like to try different inks all the time? How do you approach your ink use?
So I'm pretty new to like inks, so I don't have that many. Let's see right now. I'm just gonna step out for 1 second. There are two that I really like. This is a Sailor ink. That was like a limited edition that they made, called Homemade Tortilla. It's just a really nice brown color, that I got at a pen show. And then I have this Black Dream one that I use. So those are my main two. But as I just opened the store and I'm getting more and more products there, I get to test a lot of new things. So I'm sure I'm gonna expand my ink use. And I also really like the shimmery inks from Ferris Wheel Press, of course. I also use them for journaling. So aside from writing, I also really like using them to like create backgrounds and to make different things.
No, Shimmer is really gaining more popularity lately, it seems. When Shimmer first came out, it would kind of gum pins up, but it's so much better now. You're seeing it from ink companies who never had Shimmer starting to bring it out. So if that's something you like, it's a good time for that.
Yeah.
So what about paper? What are some of the papers you like writing on?
So I I don't write a lot on like plain paper, because I also create stationery. I usually just write in my own notebooks, in my own planners. So this is one of the planners that I have in my shop, and I choose the paper from samples But again, it's not, a Tombow or something that you might necessarily recognize. But I always make sure that the paper is good for fountain pens. So with every notebook that I make, whether it's kind of smooth paper like this, or I also make notebooks with deckled edge cotton paper that is thicker and looks a bit more, like traditional ancient paper. I always make sure that they work well with fountain pens.
Now, when I was in the store this last weekend, there was one of your notebooks that I found interesting. It has three different types of that kind of rough edge cotton
Oh yeah,
papers. It was
with
neat to have
different
one
colors.
notebook with all three types in it, just to have kind of a sampler, like
Yeah,
the first part being one, and then the middle and the end.
that'd be really cool.
And then my favorite question that I ask people, what is your favorite stationary adjacent item? And by that, I mean like a pen case, a journal cover, something that is not a pen, paper, or ink that you use all the time. And it's just like critical to how you enjoy stationery.
And that's a hard question. I would probably say stickers because, although they can be used in many different ways, I love to illustrate a little bit of what I write about. So whether it's kind of like writing my thoughts about something or my day or gratitude or whatever I write about, I really enjoy being able to dive even deeper into the topic by illustrating it. So I use stickers a lot, on the edges of my journals.
No, and considering what the store is and main
Makes
product you sell, that makes perfect sense. And that's a
Yes.
perfect answer. So let's get into the main topic. So, Cora Korea, you said about 7 years ago you started getting into the hobby just as a personal venture.
Mhm.
When did it get to the point of becoming, hey, this could be a business? How did because you started with the website, correct? And then the store followed. So, you get, how did Cora Korea get started? What's its origin story?
So it's interesting actually. I used to live in London before moving to the US, and back then I had a full-time job and I had started learning Gothic calligraphy, like I told you earlier. And as part of that, I started just being more creative on my weekends, at night. I started, writing wedding invites or place cards for friends. And then one day, a friend of mine asked me to create a travel journal for her, so a personalized travel journal. She was going to Vietnam. She wanted me to do like a full itinerary, decorate the pages, and have something like pre-made for her to write in during her trip. And this is what kind of started my Etsy shop. So I opened an Etsy shop and I started making those journals for people. It was taking me a long time, but I really, really enjoyed the process because every single journal was personalized. And so this is like what started my little shop when I was in London. About a year later, I moved to the US and COVID hit and I didn't have a job here. And I was like, okay, well, how can I, continue this hobby, but also maybe make this something that's a more important part of my life? So I continued making those travel journals that I was selling on Etsy, but I also started selling, like the tools and the crafting items that people might want to use in their own journals or in their own planners. So I started selling stickers and washi tapes and things like that. And then what really kind of kicked off uh, the company is when I started selling subscription boxes. So probably about like 4 or 5 months after moving to the US and really starting the company, that's when CoraCreaCrafts was born. I started selling subscriptions and, at first I had like 2 subscribers and then 5 and then 10 and it just like kept going. And that's what enabled me to really grow the company because I was then able to order, in larger quantities and eventually make my own products, which had always been a dream of mine. So yeah, that's how it all started.
No, that's neat. And especially, I have a feeling a lot of craft and hobbies became businesses with COVID, where people were home more.
Mhm.
There was a resurgence in analog and things you could enjoy. We're talking about it online, but you're actually doing it in person yourself. So that's
Yeah,
an interesting way to make the best of a not the best situation.
for sure.
So you said in getting started, the first product was your journals,
Mhm.
and then, what followed next? Was it stickers? Was that the main kind of like,
Um,
I mean, you said the
no.
boxes, but like aside from the boxes, what was the first product that really just kind of you started selling as much, the
Mhm.
stickers, or was it a
Washi tapes.
washi?
Yeah, washi tapes. And I think one of the one of the reasons that I became, you know, successful, so to say, or that at least the company started growing, I think is because at that time there weren't a lot of options for vintage style washi tapes and stationery in general, and stickers. Everything, that you could find easily was very cute or very, a bit kiddish. So my style, which was vintage, and what was what I wanted to bring people, wasn't that common. And so I think that really helped me as well because it was a bit of a unique thing, and yeah, that kind of helped create the company.
And that does make sense because if you think a lot of washi is Japanese, and in that culture, the
Mhm.
cartoon esque or the
Right.
anime, that influence is really heavy in washi. And you're
Hmm.
not wrong that plain washi, because I'm newish over the last year to washi. I never
Hmm.
really used it. But now I want the stuff that's a little bit more subdued. Every so often a little bit of color, but the subdued or the other things like that. It makes perfect sense. So you're not, if you want to use washi and you don't necessarily want a Japanese brand, you kind of filled that gap and started offering stuff that people could, oh yeah, I'll try that. I don't want
Hmm.
the anime character, but I'll try that vintage clock or those
Right.
typewriters or pins and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yes, exactly.
So as you were getting started and growing, you said the boxes, but did you just, hit social media to like get the initial word out that you were
Yeah.
going from Etsy into something larger?
So I kind of started social media as I was getting into the hobby myself. So before I even started the business, I created an account where I was posting, my journey learning calligraphy, and then I got into those travel journals. I got into bullet journaling, and that was again just like a personal thing. So my account had already, been up and running for 2 to 3 years probably by the time I moved to the US and like really started the business officially. And by that time I had maybe, I don't know, maybe like 3,000 followers or something like that. And yes, the social media definitely helped a lot. So I recorded every step of my journey and like, showing people what I ordered and what I was selling and my own projects and I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing now without social media. So that before I even had a website, I was only selling on Etsy, and social media is really what enabled me to get a website because by then I had kind of a following big enough for people to find me without needing a marketplace like Etsy.
No, and that makes sense. As so many people as they're getting started, it's intimidating because
Hmm.
you're going up against established businesses, but the groundswell word of mouth kind of social media, it shows its power because it can make small businesses grow quick.
Yeah.
You just need that one thing that kind of gets, the magic out, feeds the algorithm correctly for it to show all the people who don't know they need to see about your stuff, and then
Right.
it goes from there.
And I feel like it was very different back then too. Like now I don't know, I have a different relationship to social media now, but back then I feel like it was a lot more authentic. Um, the interactions and the engagement from people, and I was just sharing anything and everything, and it didn't matter. Whereas now you really have to think, okay, is this good enough? You have to like edit a lot. You have to think about the concept behind everything you create. But it was a lot easier back then, in my opinion. So yeah, I didn't have to think too much about it.
No, and that's also true, when you start a venture and then you have this existing accounts that already have a following, you're going to approach it differently of, oh, this is
Mm,
representing the company. I want, oh,
right.
I want to talk about this random thing, but oh, wait. Then if, you just have to think twice and
Yeah.
many times before posting something. But, that's where I think a lot of people have like the business account and then they'll make the personal one and keep it private
Right.
so their friends can see if you want to have, hey, look, I made this cool thing that has nothing to do with the company, but I want to show it to my friends. So
Mhm.
it's everybody finds their mixture. Cause I know for me, social media is important for getting the word out on a podcast or videos and stuff. But also at the end of the day, I'm looking at less screens and going more analog. So it kind of, goes
Yeah.
counter to the social
Yeah.
media.
Yes, there's definitely this paradox, right? It's all
Yes.
about going back to, you know, being offline, but at the same time, you have to drive your business or, even if you're not a business, you get inspiration and you get ideas from for new products and everything is online. So it's like it's sometimes difficult to deal with both aspects of this.
No, definitely. So, you're talking about 7 years ago, you started a hobby, started a business. How far were you into the business before you got to the point where you're able to sell your stuff wholesale to other people? Because that's actually the first Cora Korea product I got was from
Uh-huh.
Gentleman Stationer. I picked up a little tin of
Oh, wow.
um, the apothecary labels
Okay.
and then was looking at it, and I think Beth picked up something there too, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's the store we're going to because that's right after your store had opened." We were at Gentleman Station in the morning, then we went to your store the first time that
Wow.
afternoon.
That's
So it was
so
just
cool.
interesting that products we had happened to pick up
Yeah.
were things that we ended
Mm.
up coming to see. So when did you get to the wholesaling point?
I think it was probably 2000, probably end of 2022 or beginning of 2023. And I started the business officially in 2020. So 3 years.
Okay,
I
so
would
that
say about 3 years.
that
Yeah.
makes sense to have grown and had enough offering to be able to have other
Mhm.
businesses want to sell what you're creating.
Yeah. But
That's
for people starting, I don't think that's necessarily a criteria. I think there's a lot of small retail stores who are looking for very unique things. So it's more about getting your name out there. So, for example, I know a lot of small businesses who sell at those, stationery events and pen shows, and they're just local businesses, and they just meet people through there, and people get to know about their product, and then, those people might order for their store that, is not anywhere near that place, but they just managed to get the word out there. So I don't think necessarily it's the amount of time or like being big enough. Um, but for me, it did take a while. So
well, I
I
just
wasn't
meant big
doing any
enough in
events or
the
like that.
yeah, big enough in the sense that you have to be able to financially get enough product to be able to fulfill the orders. You have to grow to a certain point before you can
Mhm.
really wholesale,
Right.
and that's one of those things I just found interesting to find your products in town at another store. That was just, kind of a weird happenstance to
Yeah.
see that. And then I think, I've seen the products now that I know the brand because I'm more utilitarian in most of my stationery use. I'm use some stickers, I use some washi, but it wasn't my the artistic journaling was never my style. I appreciate it more now and I'm kind of crossing the streams a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's that interesting how the hobby has these little pods and until the other pods exist. I was
Uh-huh.
talking about this with a previous guest where, she has a pen store and then
Mhm.
the journaling and whatnot, they're seeing a lot more cross of the
Yeah.
subsets of their larger stationary hobby. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's where, your products being unique, being a different offering that if
Yeah.
that store owner has here's I want some washi tape that's not, bright colors. I want something that's a little bit more subdued than
Mhm.
they when they come across yours. It's like, oh, well, here's something I can do to offer what people are asking for.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. And actually, just going back to the gentleman stationer, I think they ordered from me before I even moved to Nashville. So that was interesting when I moved here and I was like, oh, this store actually carries my things. It's always very rewarding to see your products in another retail store. It's really
No,
nice.
definitely. That has to that has to be a great feeling. So, speaking of retail stores, when did you get the idea of, I think I want to open a physical location. Was
Mhm.
it one where you needed a space to be able to fulfill the online orders, but also it allowed you to have a storefront? Or was it one where you wanted a storefront and you just found one that would also let you have a good backstock area to do classes or fulfill
Mhm.
orders? So, how did the store
So
itself come to be?
so it was always a dream of mine, at least for the past probably kind of since I started selling wholesale and seeing, all these beautiful retail stores and being able to meet people in person was always, an important thing for me. But I didn't get the chance to do it for a while because I lived in Chicago. We were moving to Nashville. Then when I arrived here, I had to find a warehouse, and it was just a little bit chaotic. But I did have the idea to open a store for a while. And even as I was still in Chicago, I was researching because we know we were moving to Nashville. I was researching what kind of store are there in Nashville and realized there's not that many other options out there. Um, so I was already thinking about it. But then about a year after I moved here, so that was, last summer, I had to move to another warehouse because our lease was expiring. And I thought, okay, why don't I try to find a warehouse that I can also have a bit of a front of house kind of space with it, so that it doesn't, cost me too much. It wouldn't be too much of that was important to me, not to have to take a huge risk because I was a little scared. I didn't know if it was going to work out or not. So having both the online business and the retail store together just made sense. And so I found this space in Metroplex Drive, and they were office spaces. And I asked them to remove all the office, like the walls, and just create a big space out of it. So it all worked out, and now I can also host some events there. So it just, it just ended up working fine. Of course, it's not the most central location for a retail store, but it works really well for now.
But it's kind of like a you know, hidden surprise. It
Yes.
you're driving down, you're like, "Is this the right place?" And you get there like, "Oh, this is really cool," but
Yeah.
it's an intentional place, but
Right.
it makes sense because a lot of stores, online business is such a big thing now. You still wanna have the storefront where you can get the interaction with people, or if they,
Mhm.
are coming to Nashville and "Oh, I wanna go to, the CoraCrea store." They know where it is, they can find the destination, but you're able to optimize your warehouse and
Yeah.
do all the shipping and receiving. Because I know, in interviewing Joe from Gentleman Stationer in the first season, and then also Lisa Vaness, as Vaness has moved, they had the same thing. Bigger
Mhm.
warehouse, smaller front of house.
Right.
For Joe having, mainly warehouse and then a front of house,
Nice.
that seems to be a common theme for this, for the smaller businesses like this that are highly specialized, because then
Yes.
you're able to economize. You're able to get one
Mhm.
place that can do both instead of trying to always have a physical retail location staffed and, a lot more overhead for a
Exactly. Yeah, and I
to
was
account
just
for.
just worried, to have to be worried all the time about, oh, how many sales did we make today? Are we going to be able to just pay the rent? Are we going to be able to pay the people because you need to have someone there all day, every day? So yeah, it just makes a lot more sense, at least in the beginning, to make sure it works.
Oh, and you have for I don't know how big the warehouse space is, but you've got a good sized front of house. You can see a lot of stuff because
Yeah.
if you think about a lot of the stationery and sticker products, one little thing on the wall has a bunch of stickers. Because I know, because was grabbing all sorts of ones this
Yeah.
last weekend. The typewriters and the pins and whatnot. But so you can have a sample, and then you still have your full website inventory in the back. So if something's not up front, the employee, whoever's there, can go, "Oh," because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
"Wait, we have a pack of these stickers too. Let me go get a pack of them." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." Because then
Mhm.
you get the ones I'd picked out, and I was like, "I'll take the pack on top of it." Because then you
Right.
get, the
Y
best of both.
Yes,
So it's a
yes.
nice way to approach it.
Yeah, it happens a lot, and this way we can also provide a bit of a personalized service once we kind of know what people like, and it makes us think, oh, we actually have other things that you might like that that are not on display, or some people come in and are looking for specific things that I don't have space to display. For example, I don't know, rice papers or things like that. So I'm like, oh, well, we actually have some. And so then it creates this nice interaction, and I feel like it's nice and personalized for people to experience it this way.
No, definitely. So with the store, because I know this, my wife has attended one of your classes. When did you start offering just the journaling days and classes? Because that's a unique thing that I think is a draw for people to find. Like you said, your location is in a
Mhm.
unique spot, but that gets people coming to you to do classes and events. Was that a happy accident after the fact of, wait, I have this place now that I could do classes? How did that work in? Because they seem like they're really popular and sell out really quickly.
Yeah. So, as I said, the idea behind the store front was to be able to meet people and to interact with, people who are also interested in stationery. So I've always wanted to also host events. In the past, I've hosted events at other places sometimes, but it was difficult to create like a local following and a local audience without having that, space. So nobody knew me, I think, just because, I'm just an online business. I could be anywhere in the world. But having the physical store, I think, just is a bit of a proof of concept in a way. Um, so now we have more and more people joining our events. So that was my plan all along. We actually opened the store in October last year, 2025. And since then, I've been, doing these like free events every month to just like create a community, and just bring people and let people know that we have this space, where you can come and be creative and meet other people that enjoy the same kinds of hobbies. And then those are working really well, I think, just because, you know, it's free, first of all, and then there's just the community aspect that's really nice. And you can just spend a few hours on a Saturday, not spend too much money, and just like do something fun. And then because those have been working quite well, I've started doing workshops as well, also based on what people have been asking me when they're visiting the store. So little workshops and things like that. We usually do about 2 to 3 events every month.
That's definitely keeping busy, but if people are coming, that means it's working. It's the coordination, but that's an interesting thing with Nashville is we went so long without any stationery stores, but there are a lot of people here, and now that there's local options, it's like, oh, I'm going to go there. Might not be every week, but oh, we
Yeah,
haven't been to that store in a while. We need to go back again because they might have new stuff.
right.
There's a lot of interest here that I think has been waiting for places to go to find it, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And I mean, it's all a learning curve. So, people will come in and will be like, oh, could you think about bringing this brand to your store, or this type of item, or this type of sticker, or this type of workshop? I've been wanting to learn about writing with a fountain pen, but I have no idea how to get started. So a lot of people just, feedback and give us ideas, and then we're trying to adapt and just change things as we go, and it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I think it's great to have this for the local community and for myself included, because I'm the first first one to consume the product. So
No, and I'm sure that can get troublesome at times, like, "Oh, I got all this new stuff in, well, I wanna keep one of each of these and one of those," and your personal stash gets to where you have to have a separate area to store your personal
right.
section of what you order for the store.
Hmm.
So you mentioned earlier you got one of the inks at a pin show. Do you think you'll ever expand into doing shows? Since that is such a niche thing, doing some of the ones like that are within maybe a couple hours driving distance versus,
Yeah.
or even the big ones, is that on the roadmap at some point?
So I've attended several pen shows, specifically in Chicago, when I lived there. But last year, or like in the last 2 years, I've started attending events myself, and selling at events. but I've never done pen shows specifically. I have done some stationery shows, and I have done a planner conference, and I have done some scrapbook expos, but I haven't tried the pen shows yet. I was always a little bit worried about the expenses of, like traveling there, bringing a lot of things, spending a lot of time, and maybe not getting a lot of interest. But I know a lot of people have been asking me, and I've had several requests from pen shows asking me if I could come and vend there. So I'm definitely considering it. I just haven't d I haven't done it yet, but I'm considering it.
No, and it makes sense because, like I was saying earlier, the streams are crossing. People
Mm-hmm.
who are fountain pen people are saying, "Hey, the creative journaling stuff, that looks interesting. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get some of that stuff." And then the journaling people are like, "Wait, you know, I want to learn more about fountain pens." So you're seeing at the pen shows, more like more journaling stuff. They might not have any pens at the table, but
All
that's
right.
where if every other table has pins and you have something different, what table are
Yeah,
you going to want to go look at? You're going to go want to look at the
yeah, that
one with the
makes sense.
stickers or
Yeah.
the washi
There's
or
less competition because there's not that many vendors that have different things. Yeah.
it,
So what are good pen shows you would recommend
well,
for
for
me?
you being Nashville based, I mean, there's Arkansas, which is coming up at the end of March. There's Atlanta, there's St. Louis. So there's multiple shows within a 4 hour drive, 4 to 5 hour drive that are well attended. If nothing else, it's another way of getting word of mouth for the website because
Mm-hmm.
if people see, oh, CoraCrea, I recognize that. I saw them at this show. And then, oh, well, they have a website. It's just an interesting
Mm-hmm.
way. And like I said, there's a lot of pen people who are probably looking, especially with your washi, for example.
It's
It's more my cup of tea,
mm-hmm.
in style. And that's something I'd be like, oh, I'm going to pick some of that up. So there's
Mm-hmm.
people who are on one side of the hobby who are looking at the other side going, oh, I want to try some of that. So
Yeah.
there's enough. Nashville seems to be, because I imagine within the next few years, there will be a Nashville show. I mean, the
It'd be
writing's all on the wall. If you think about it, with to have 3 stationery stores in Middle Tennessee open up over the past few years, you know,
mm-hmm.
there's enough of a demand here, and we're close enough where people would travel in because you get the tourist
Right.
aspect and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I would say, just looking at those regional ones around, you can always do a trial,
Yeah.
try one. And if it, set a number, if you make it, do. If not,
Yeah.
you
I
might
mean,
pick up still some online customers from that
it's a good
one show.
experience either way, and like you said, like it's always a good way to spread the word and to do a little bit of marketing. So yeah, I'm definitely considering it. Those events, those bigger events that I'm doing, the stationary shows are just so much work that I'm I'm more anxious to take on like any additional events. I have a big one in Texas in April and then a big one in New York in I don't know if you've heard of the stationary um
Yeah, the April, that sounds like the
fest.
little craft fest
Yeah,
at,
Little Craft Fest, and then the Stationery Fest in New York in August. So those are big ones, but I don't have anything towards the end of the year. So I'm gonna look and see if there's anything then that I could attend.
no, and that's where, from being a more of a pin person, the stationary shows are popping up, and that's where you have a lot of the people who are looking for what you sell, and then you might have 1 or 2 pin vendors. So it's like the opposite of
Mhm.
a pin
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
Where the pin, the 1 or 2 pin retailers are like, "Hey, this is great." I know Lisa Vaness, she loves teaching people
Yes,
how to use pins, and it's that kind of, that's her wheelhouse, so you get those kind of cross things, which is great for the community as a whole because, if when people find new stuff and they're excited about it, they're gonna, go tell other people, and it just helps everybody.
right.
Like being a pin person, this is one of the things I had the first time I went to your store, the little fountain pen clip,
Yes, those
and I
are
use it
super
all the
good.
time because I got one of each color. And,
Mm-hmm.
I've had people ask about that when they see it clipped on something at Pen Club or things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just those little, and the way that just someone, you having something and using it, people ask, oh, where'd you get that?
Mhm.
Oh, I got it here.
Yeah.
Or, like when I was
Word
in
of
your
mouth
store.
is so
Yeah.
important. Yes.
when I was in your store in Asia, was talking about, oh, I'm new to fountain pens because we're just talking as she's
Mm.
ringing us up, and I was like, oh, well, we have a pen club, we have this, and it's just you can kind of talk about that and share, and then it's up to the person to go look up the stuff after the fact and see if it's something they're interested in. But that word of mouth is it's worth its weight in gold. You can't pay for
Yeah.
that kind of exposure.
Yeah.
So let's get down to the important question. Do you have any sneak peeks of new stuff that you just got in or is about to come out?
Yes.
Because that's the big thing with any kind of store is you want to see what the new stuff is, the sneak
Before the
peek or the just arrived type items.
Okay, so the one thing about my business is that I always have new stuff because I do subscriptions, as you know. So every single month we have new, a bunch of new things. But this I really wanted to show you because I'm very excited about this. It's an Irish themed box that's coming up for March, just in time for St. Patrick's Day. And I did a Scotland themed one last year, and people really loved it and have been asking for an Ireland themed one. So now I have the Ireland themed box coming. So it comes in this little box that you've probably seen in the store. So that's how we pack all our boxes, and then every box comes with a bunch of different things inside. So I'm gonna show you that this one has. You get some oh, well, kind of
It's
get the
focusing
idea.
pretty good. Yeah.
The leprechauns stickers. Then you have some really cool kind of mythology and nature inspired papers. That's then the sticker tins already. I love this format. So now there's gonna be an Ireland sticker tin. Then we have some stamps. So that's something cool with different kind of symbols on here. Some more papers. I know this as like maybe that's the one of the things you don't really use too much yet. Um, if you're into fountain pens more than, crafts. But those are just so much fun to use to illustrate your journals. And then of course, washi tapes. So this set I really love. So it's a set of three that have some orange and some green, and they just have some nice patterns on them. And okay, this one I have to open it for you.
No, and the washies I've picked up, I have the one of the Viking ones that has like the Thor's hammer on it and whatnot.
Oh yes, that one's
I like
cool.
that
Yeah.
one because it's more subdued. It's the you wouldn't expect a Viking to have really bright colors. So just those kind of looks that a little bit more in my personal wheelhouse. But
Right. Same with me. People have been asking me though more recently to do things with more colors. So I'm the type to do, like browns and black and very subdued colors, but I do some surveys every year to ask people what they want, and I've been asked for more colors, so I'm working on that as
oh, those are
well.
neat.
Yes, those are all real castles of Ireland. So if you go on a trip there, that's also like a great way to journal. A lot of people do travel journaling. Um,
And is
so
that one of
yes,
the washi styles where you have where each castle can peel off as a sticker?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. So this is basically a huge roll of stickers, because you peel them off.
Yes, if you're not familiar with the CoraCrea, that's one of the coolest things with the washi. Some of them are individual sticker rolls where you can just pick and choose which item you want to use
Yeah,
off
you
of
just
things. Yeah.
peel them off, and it's just a sticker. So those are cool. So yes, this is our little reveal. I haven't even shown this anywhere yet. So you're the first first one to see this.
Oh, we appreciate it. That's been one fun thing with doing this show is, people have a sneak peek of something that's either coming soon or will be coming, and that's just a neat way to learn about it.
Hmm.
And so then someone who's never heard of your business can go, "Oh, wait, there's an Ireland thing coming up in March. I should go check out the website and, see what it takes to order
Yeah.
something like that." So it's neat to be able to get those sneak peeks and previews because that's what
Hmm.
everybody wants to see. They want to see the behind the scenes
Yeah.
and they want to see the what's coming soon. Um, you know, being the first to know, that's what people love that.
Yes, I agree.
So then as we're starting to wrap up and we're kind of down to the final question that I like to ask everybody. For yours it'll be a two-part. What's next for Cora Korea Crafts? And then what's next for the Creative Corner Nashville?
Well, for Creative Corner Nashville, I think what's next is just expanding the local community, maybe hosting a wider scale event, a market type of event, or even like a retreat. That's been something I've been wanting to do. So some kind of like week-long journaling, stationery, or craft creative retreat. So that's been on my mind. I'm already kind of running out of space in the store. So potentially expanding at some point. I mean, I haven't even been open a year, so I'm not, it's just like kind of future, but maybe. And then for CoraCreaCrafts, I would love to expand into other countries. So finding some retailers in Europe specifically. It's been quite difficult for customers from them there to order because of the taxes, the tariffs, the shipping costs. So I would really, really love to find a stable partner over there that can carry a wide range of products to have kind of like a distributor.
Yeah.
So that would be one of my goals for what's next for Cora Crafts.
No, and that's great. Definitely be sure, and we'll have links to all sorts of this stuff in the notes for the episode, to the social media for Corley's different things for the store, for personal, whatever. And then we'll have the link to the website. And then, any of the things we've talked about, we'll throw some links in there as well. But I wanted to say thanks again, Corley, for taking some time. This was interesting to learn more about another local store
Yes.
and kind of its origins, and a local store that started widespread, and we're just lucky enough to have them, your physical location be here in town, but obviously your website was already doing great things and you already have quite a following, so it was just nice to get to learn more about your business and how it's been growing and will continue to grow in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to spread the word about journaling and crafting and like the other side of the of the art to your audience and to people who are more into pens and things like that. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was lovely.
Oh, and thank you again. And this will be available on RSS feed through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course the video version, which would be the best. So you can see what Coralie was holding up for the sneak peeks for March on YouTube. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.